Okay, we're adding and subtracting decimals in a small mini lesson. If I were to add 5/8 plus 5/6, before I started adding, I would have to find a common denominator between 8 and 6. Okay, so in order to do that, you have a couple of choices. You can simply do the least common multiple, try to find the least common multiple of 8 and 6, or you can just simply multiply them together. If you multiply them together, you could get 48. That could be a common denominator. Okay, but the problem with that is it does tend to get pretty big, and you would have to simplify it, and it takes some time to simplify it. But let's do it this way. 8 can go into 48 6 times, right? So if I multiply this by 6, I can multiply the top by 6 as well. So 5 times 6 is 30. Same thing with this 6 here. So 6 goes into 48 8 times. 5 times 8, because you're going to multiply by the same number, right? So that's going to be 40. And then we can add the numerators, keep the same denominator, and that will become 70. Okay. So in this case, because it's improper, you're going to have to change it to a mixed number. So 48 goes into 70 how many times? At least once, right? You have 32 left over, or 22? 22. So it's 1. 1 is your whole number. 22, your remainder, is going to be your numerator, and then you keep the same denominator. And then you're going to still have to put that in lowest terms, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, 1 and 11 over 24. Okay? So that's one way of doing that. If you were to do the same problem again, but this time choose something a little bit smaller that 8 and 6 can go into, you can also pick 24. 24 is something that they can both go into. 8 goes into 24 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. 6 goes into 24 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Then you've got 35 over 24. 24 goes into 35 at least one time, with how much left over? 11 over 24. So that might be a little bit easier. Okay, so the same thing would be true of subtraction. You would have to find a common denominator and then subtract. Let's do that. So let's make it a whole number. So I should say a mixed number. So let's say 2.5 minus 5/6. Okay. Now, before you try to find a common denominator, well, you could do that. You could also change this to a improper fraction. So let's do that first, because that might be a little bit easier. We won't have to borrow from the 2 later. So anyways, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So 5 over 2 minus 5 over 6. So you need a common denominator between 2 and 6. So 2 can go into 6, but 6 can go into itself. So let's pick 6. This stays the same, right? Because 6 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5, so that stays the same. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. Then you can subtract the numerators, and then you'll get 10 over 6, keep the same denominator. This is improper, so this goes in, one time with 4 remaining. Put in lowest terms, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, so you get 1 and 2/3. 1 and 2/3. Let's see, okay. So that's just the basics of subtracting and adding. Remember, the big thing about subtracting and adding is you need to find a common denominator. You can either multiply them and find one that way, or you can see if one goes in the other, or you might have to look for a least common multiple. And anyways, good luck.